Hey, I'm Johnny, and this is PytchAir episode 3. And in this episode, we're going to talk about how you put a Boeing 727 on top of shipping containers. So, if you've seen the other episodes, this is an aircraft that I've bought. It's a Boeing 727 private jet from 1968, and I've got planning permission to install it in my industrial estate on Bonneville Road in Brislington. This is a lot of fun, and we want to share the ideas and the process and the journeys and the challenges and all the failures, so other people can chuck in their ideas, be inspired, or you can just laugh at us if you want. That's also fine. So, this one, how do we get an aircraft on top of containers? So let's start by looking at the containers. Whoa, hang on. This is, here we go. This is what they look like, okay? Not pretty. In another video, I've talked already about how we're going to make the containers less scrapyardy and a bit cooler. So, they're the containers. We're going to level them off, talk to that separately. Now, this thing's got to go on. People were worried about the weight. It's not as heavy as you'd think. It only weighs somewhere between 8 and 12 ton. A Boeing 727, normally, when it's airworthy, weighs a lot more than that, but most of the weight's in the wings and the engines. So without the wings and the engines, and things like the APU, which have been taken out as well, it weighs a lot less. We also only have the front landing gear as well. Landing gears are very, very heavy. So, 8 to 12 tons, not actually that much. But you can't go chucking an aeroplane straight in a container because it might roll off. And also, containers, if you don't know, they have a corrugated sheet metal, not very strong, but the corner posts are very, very strong. So, it'd be a lovely idea to position it precisely, but from my experience of producing live events and building stages, in reality, things don't always work out quite how you want, so you want flexibility. So, we can't get the front landing gear to sit directly on a corner post or down a joint in the side. So what we're going to do is run in some big RSJ spreaders. Now we know the weight load capacity of the corner posts of shipping containers. So on these corners like here and so on, it can take a lot of load. In fact, the containers have it written on the side how much mass they can take from other containers. So with some big RSJs, the exact thickness, not sure yet, but we'll have to run some calcs. And we're going to spread from, say, this corner here, if you can see my pointer, across to the corner there, or spread across multiple containers. So by having that spreader between load-bearing corner points, we can then impose load on that spreader. So pretty straightforward. We might have to use 2 spreaders and another spreader on top, but the point is we're spreading that load out to the load-bearing corner posts. The front bit's relatively simple. The back gets more complicated. Here's the back of the aircraft. Let's look at a photo of that. Here we go. So here she is now, down at Kemble Airfield. Front landing gear like we talked about. It's worth noting at this point, the 727 is actually very low to the ground. The 737, which is a very similar airframe, is higher up because the engines are beneath the wings, so the whole thing's higher up. And that's actually one of the origins of some of the challenges I've had around the 737 MAX, is because the engines are bigger still, the aircraft's higher up, and that changes the whole way the thing flies. But this old beauty, the engines were originally at the back of the aircraft, which means the whole thing's lower to the ground, so it's actually very close to the ground. Okay, here's how she looks now. She's got these stub wings on her, and she's got the landing gears that hang under the wings and fold back into the fuselage. However, they're going to be gone because to transport it, the wings have got to be removed so that we don't have the width. We're not going to be reattaching the wings. It's beyond our engineering capability. So instead, we're going to use the landing gear space, which is in the fuselage, where there's some load-bearing members that go through the aircraft. The intention is we then have an RSJ that runs through that, and you can pass it straight through the aircraft, drop down, and then they drop onto spreaders. Make sense? If not, you can see here. This is a general, very, very crude idea. We're going to have, let's just move this up a bit, redraw this. This will actually go through the body of the fuselage, like so, like that. And then these columns here will rest underneath. Now I'm thinking, and again, this is where debate's great. The span goes through the aircraft. We want the column post to rest underneath. So while Craig's a great welder and all, most of the load's going to be in compression. We're not going to apply a shear force on the weld. That sits on there, and our weld's got to stop it moving, as opposed to actually take the direct load. Now beneath that, we are of course going to need, again, a spreader, which needs to go from corner post to corner post of the containers. Now we might get really lucky and it can be positioned like close to perfect. So let's drop that in here. Like this. And spread it from that corner post to this one. Now, good old SketchUp has already identified that that corner post probably won't be exactly where we want it. So we need to get the whole assembly to a position where we can make the load apply through the corner post of the container like so. So I'm going to move this across to here. Again, this is all pretty crude for now, but it's good for just getting the general principles in place so later on we can do some much more precise designs. So if you look now, we've now got our leg, our stanchion, if you want to call that, going into a spreader, and that spreader is going to be attached across 2 containers. In fact, we could even spread it across the 4 corner posts. Corner post 1, 2, 3, 4. And then we'll have to do the same at this side. Now, ideally, of course, the spreader would be out the side. But of course, the wider span we go, the bigger the load on the member, this one here, that goes across. So then we need to consider how strong is that span. The bigger the span, the more strength it needs. So if we're now pushing it what will actually be about 6 meters because it's a 20-foot container, that's been one hell of an RSJ to be able to take a point load in the middle of, let's say it's maybe 8 ton at the back. We need to run the calcs for that. And it might turn out that RSJ needs to be so damn big that we need to do something different. We could maybe put some struts in the corners to reduce the span. Or it might be that we do something different with where the spreader sits so the span's less. These are all the considerations. Now, as you can probably tell, I'm no trained engineer. What I do is I design on an intuitive basis. What kind of makes sense initially? Then I get other people's thoughts, and then we get to the point where it's a full-on technical design. This may work out to be totally fine, but you know what? It's better to have a starting point that's wrong, that we can change, rather than no plan at all. In fact, often designs, I find, start debates, and that's what you need to get other people's thoughts and input. So there's a very initial design. I think that span's going to need to be reduced quite a lot. So that is the steelwork. Now, in terms of getting it in, right? Again, we can laser level, we've got all the gear, we can use plumb lines, whatever. But in reality, until we drop that aircraft in place, I don't want to commit to the exact height of that spreader. Because if this aircraft is out by 1 degree, it's just not going to feel right. I want to walk in there and put a marble on the polished table and it not roll around. It's got to be spot on. So what I'm thinking we do is that we have provision within the design that we can level precisely. So we build the gantry, we get the spreaders in for the front landing gear, and then we crane it into position, and we have the ability to adjust. That could be with things like metal chocking, or it could be we have some joining plates where the bolt positions can change when it's in situ. Again, love to hear people's thoughts on that, and if there's better ways of doing that, I'd love to hear them. Be amazing, but I got to get this precise, and I think sometimes an imprecise design that allows for flexibility could be better than over-designing and then find the aircraft rocks up and suddenly, you know, it's out by 20 mil somewhere and suddenly it's all a bit wobbly and, you know, the crane guys have got to get moving and it just gets out of control. So really exciting, really fun stuff. I love this kind of chaos. So that's how we're going to try and position the aircraft. Again, love to hear your thoughts, get some debate on. I bet you there's some amazing engineers out there who'll be sitting here rolling their eyes saying, oh my God, Johnny, you're missing a trick here. Get in contact, put your comments below. I'd love to hear it. See you guys soon.